TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcasting to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Palestinian Islamists resumed rocket and mortar fire from the Gaza Strip toward Israel's southern communities, prompting Israeli retaliatory strikes on the Hamas-controlled enclave. Iraq's mostly Iranian-backed Popular Mobilization Forces, PMF, have officially blamed Israel and the United States for a series of devastating explosions that destroyed a number of their paramilitary installations, all of which stored a significant amount of military equipment and, among others, housed weapons caches of precision-guided missiles. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Zarif insists that the international community must choose between security for everybody or insecurity for everybody at a time when the Islamic Republic is growing increasingly desperate in the face of crippling U.S. sanctions. Palestinian Islamists resumed rocket and mortar fire from the Gaza Strip toward Israel's southern communities. One launch was identified from the Hamas-controlled enclave into Israeli territory shortly after 9 p.m. yesterday evening. Rocket alert sirens were activated in an uninhabited area where shortly thereafter a projectile exploded. Several hours later, the IDF spokesperson's unit announced that IDF fighter jets struck a number of military targets in a Hamas naval facility, which is located in the northern part of the Palestinian Strip. The IDF reiterated in its statement that it holds the Hamas terror organization accountable for events transpiring in the Gaza Strip and emanating from it, and that it will continue operating against any attempts to harm Israeli civilians. Less than half an hour after the Israeli response, another launch was identified from the Gaza Strip. Once again, the incoming projectile exploded in an uninhabited territory of southern Israel. While thankfully no injuries or damage were reported in Israel, the IDF responded by targeting an additional number of Hamas military targets around dawn this morning. Now to Iraq, where the mostly Iranian-backed Popular Mobilization Forces, PMF, have officially blamed Israel and the United States for a series of devastating explosions that destroyed a number of their paramilitary installations, all of which stored a significant amount of military equipment and, among others, housed weapons caches of precision-guided missiles. According to the written accusation, the United States had allowed 4 Israeli drones to enter the region, accompanying U.S. forces, for the purpose of carrying out missions on Iraqi soil. As such, the PMF vowed to defend itself against any attacks on its bases, including by means of advanced weaponry. It is important to note that the accusations voiced by the PMF were made despite the fact that there were no claims of responsibility for the attack. Nevertheless, as was reported on TV7 Israel News last night, informed sources in both Jerusalem and Tel Aviv confirmed to TV7 that Israeli units were indeed involved in clandestine operations against Iranian targets in Iraq. One of the sources also noted that all of the Israeli operations are conducted in full coordination with the United States. The U.S. Central Command, which is responsible for Washington's military operations in the Middle East and Central Asia, brushed off the PMF accusations while underscoring in a written statement to TV7 that it operates in Iraq at the invitation of the government of Iraq and comply with their laws and direction. CENTCOM's spokesperson's unit further noted that there have not been any injuries reported to U.S. personnel due to the explosion at Al-Balad Air Base in Iraq, which is situated near some of the PMF installations. It bears mention that the Popular Mobilization Forces, or Hashd al-Shabi in Arabic, is an Iraqi state-sponsored umbrella organization that is composed predominantly of Shiite militias that receive most of their training, logistical support, and operational directives from Iran and its Lebanese proxy Hezbollah, including the commander of the elite Quds force of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards, General Qasem Soleimani. Now to the Islamic Republic, where Iran displayed what it described as a domestically built mobile surface-to-air missile system with long-range capabilities. Iranian state media showed President Hassan Rouhani attending the unveiling ceremony for the Baval 373 system, which Tehran authorities described as a competitor to the Russian S-300 missile system. The system's unveiling came on the Islamic Republic's National Defense Industry Day. It is important to know that Western military analysts accuse Iran of often exaggerating regarding its weapons capabilities. That said, concerns about Iran's long-range ballistic missile program, which is viewed as one of four pillars in Tehran's efforts to develop nuclear weapon capabilities, attributed to Washington's decision to leave the 2015 nuclear agreement. Meanwhile, in Stockholm, Sweden, Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Zarif insisted that the international community must choose between security for everybody or insecurity for everybody. In a speech at the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI, the Iranian top diplomat asserted an veiled threat that global security is intertwined, and as such, foreign military presence in the Persian Gulf cannot prevent insecurity at a time when the United States is waging an economic war against Iran.
No amount of foreign military presence can prevent insecurity in this region. Security is a common global commodity. We have to accept either security for everybody or insecurity for everybody. You cannot have an island of security by your fleet in the Persian Gulf when the United States is waging an economic war against Iran. When the United States is forcing countries to seize our ships in Gibraltar, in the Suez Canal, in Singapore. That's insecurity. Global security is intertwined.
The comments made by Minister Zarif essentially echoed a statement that was made earlier by Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who declared in a televised address, quote, "World powers know that in the case that oil is completely sanctioned and Iran's oil exports are brought down to zero, international waterways can't have the same security as before." Therefore, Khamenei stressed, quote, "Unilateral pressure against Iran can't be to their advantage and won't guarantee their security in the region and the world." Now back to Jerusalem, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, together with South Korean Trade Minister Yoon Myung-hee, announced that the two countries concluded 3 years of negotiations on a free trade agreement aimed at significantly bolstering bilateral trade.
Israel is a vibrant, advanced economy, and I think our partnership will do tremendous good for both our economies. I'm sure it will multiply our trade, which is already standing at $2.5 billion. It will grow a lot. And secondly, I think that this will also offer for Israeli consumers decreased prices, the removal of customs, for example, for Korean cars. Everybody drives Korean cars. And I think it's also the ability to have the technological exchanges that will give the great advantage for the future. So I wanted to say how delighted we all are, and the people of Israel are delighted with this increased cooperation between our two countries. So welcome.
Thank you. First of all, Your Excellency, thank you for your warm hospitality extended to me and also my delegation. As you mentioned, this is very significant historic agreement, and both countries, Korea and Israel, we have a lot of similarities, and also we have complementary economic structure. So based on this FTA, I'm sure that we will further promote our trade and investment, as well as further promote our technology cooperation.
As Netanyahu mentioned, bilateral trade rose more than 15% in 2018 to $2.5 billion, which is equal to about 2.25 billion euros, and the deal, which still requires parliamentary ratification, is expected to boost it further. According to Israel's economy ministry, under the new deal, more than 95% of Israeli exports will be exempt from customs duties, while importers and consumers will save some 100 million shekels a year, which is equal to some $28.4 million or 25.5 million euros. Furthermore, customs duties will be eliminated on imports from South Korea, the world's 11th largest economy, including cars and auto parts, toys, appliances, and electronic components. It is interesting to note that nearly half of Israeli exports to South Korea are machinery as well as electrical and medical equipment. They also include fertilizers, cosmetics, and juices. Thank you for watching us. Keep praying for the peace of Israel and the peace of Jerusalem. I'm Jonathan Hassan. Have a Erev Tov, and we will see you again tomorrow at the same time.